Gastritis is a general term for a group of conditions that share one thing, and that's an inflammation of the lining of the stomach. The inflammation of gastritis is most often the result of an infection with the same bacteria that causes most stomach ulcers. Use of different pain relievers, too much alcohol, those are all things that can contribute to the development of gastritis. It can occur suddenly, be an acute gastritis, or appear more slowly over time, and that would be chronic gastritis. It can lead to ulcers and an increased risk of stomach cancer, but for most people, it's not serious and can improve quickly with treatment. Some of the symptoms include this kind of gnawing or burning ache or pain, kind of like an indigestion in the upper abdomen that can become better or worse with eating, nausea, vomiting, feeling of fullness in your abdomen after eating, or it may not be any signs or symptoms at all. A number of diseases and conditions can increase the risk of gastritis. If people have Crohn's disease, that's one of the ones that can increase the risk. Some of the other things, a bacterial infection can increase the risk. Regular use of pain relievers, aspirin, ibuprofen, naproxen, they can all cause some both acute and chronic gastritis. Older people, that's a risk factor. They're at increased risk of having gastritis because their stomach lining tends to thin as you get older. Excessive use of alcohol can irritate and erode the stomach lining, which makes you vulnerable to gastritis. Stress, as we talked about before, can increase issues with the stomach. And you can have an autoimmune gastritis, in which the body attacks the cells that make up the stomach lining and can cause some problems. And then peptic ulcers, these are open sores that develop on the inside lining of the stomach and the upper portion of the small intestine. So we have an example right here. The most common symptom is stomach pain, but you could also have, burning sensation, a feeling of fullness, bloating, belching, intolerance to fatty food, heartburn, nausea. So the stomach acid generally makes the pain worse, and having an empty stomach can make the pain worse. So the pain with the peptic ulcer is often relieved by eating certain foods that buffer that stomach acid or by taking an acid-reducing medication, but then it often comes back. The pain can be worse between meals and at night, but in some people who have peptic ulcers, they don't have any symptoms at all. Less commonly, people with peptic ulcers can have some vomiting, dark blood in the stools, difficulty breathing, feeling faint, unexplained weight loss, changes in appetite. So peptic ulcers are they occur when the acid in the digestive tract eats away at the inner surface of the stomach or the small intestines, often caused by bacterium. The Helicobacter pylori bacteria, commonly called H. pylori, is one that commonly lives in the mucus layer of the stomach and small intestines. It causes no problems, but it can cause an inflammation of the stomach's inner layer, producing an ulcer. They don't really know why H. pylori infection spreads. It can be transmitted person by person, a close contact, and you can contract H. pylori through food and water. You can also get ulcers as a result of same thing, taking pain relievers. Smoking increases risk, drinking alcohol, stress, eating spicy foods. Alone, it doesn't cause ulcers, but it can make them worse and more difficult to heal. It's important to treat ulcers because it can lead to internal bleeding, some infection, obstruction. One of the things I can say with ulcers is before it used to be treated by a week of antibiotics or something, and what they found, antacids and things, but they found that giving antibiotics can work better to treat the H. pylori. But the problem is you have to give a longer sequence of antibiotics. So more and more doctors are prescribing a 3-week treatment of antibiotics for H. pylori because that's the only thing that can address the H. pylori. Irritable bowel syndrome is another GI condition. It affects the large intestine. Symptoms include cramping, abdominal pain, bloating, gas, diarrhea, constipation, sometimes both. It is a chronic condition that needs to be managed long term. Only a small number of people with irritable bowel have severe signs and symptoms. Most people are able to manage their symptoms by managing their diet, their lifestyle, their stress. Sometimes in more severe cases, they need medication or counseling. Some of the symptoms are that abdominal pain, the cramping, the bloating, excess gas, diarrhea, or constipation, as I said. Having a mucus in the stool can be a sign. Some of the more serious symptoms are that unexplained weight loss, rectal bleeding, an iron deficiency anemia, unexplained vomiting, difficulty swallowing. They don't really know what causes irritable bowel. Some of the things that appear to play a role are the ability of the muscles to contract in the intestine. So the walls of the intestine are lined with layers of muscle that contract as they move through food through the digestive tract. And contractions that are stronger and last longer than normal cause gas, bloating, and diarrhea. So those weak intestinal contractions can slow food passage and lead to problems with having hard or dry stools. Abnormalities in the nerves of the digestive system can also play a role. They can cause a person to experience greater than normal discomfort when the abdomen stretches from gas or stool. You can have an inflammation of the intestines, an infection. If you have a person who has severe diarrhea or gastroenteritis that's caused by a bacteria or virus, irritable bowel can be associated with that. Changes in the bacteria of the gut, so losing some of the good bacteria that are already in the intestines can cause problems. Some triggers for irritable bowel are food, different types of food that may be specific to the person, but in general, it can be things like beans, wheat, dairy products, carbonation. Stress, we've talked about already. Most people are likely to have, the people who are likely to have irritable bowel are typically younger. Most are diagnosed before the age of 50, mostly females. There is a family role, or genes play a role in irritable bowel. It's also associated with a poor quality of life, as you can imagine. Mood disorders, it can lead to depression or anxiety, which is kind of a circular issue because those stress and anxiety can make the irritable bowel worse, and then irritable bowel can cause stress and anxiety. So different ways to treat, in addition to some cases, medication. Counseling can help with the anxiety and depression, relaxation exercises, mindfulness training, other types of ways to reduce stress and anxiety can help manage some of the symptoms of irritable bowel. Celiac disease, that's an autoimmune disorder. It's also called gluten sensitivity or sensitive enteropathy. It's an immune reaction to eating gluten. And gluten, if you're not aware, is a protein found in wheat, barley, and rye. So if you have celiac disease, eating gluten triggers an immune response in your small intestines. And over time, this reaction damages the lining of the small intestines and prevents absorption of some of the nutrients. So this intestinal damage often causes things like diarrhea, fatigue, and weight loss, bloating, anemia, and can lead to serious complications. There's no cure for celiacs. For most people, they're able to manage it following a strict gluten-free diet that can manage some of the symptoms of it. but you're going to have celiacs. What's important to point out is that celiac runs in families, so there is a hereditary component. It's triggered as a result of eating foods with gluten. It can also be triggered, so you may not have celiacs throughout your life, and then all of a sudden something triggers it for the first time. And it can be things like surgery, pregnancy, childbirth, infections, emotional stress. So when you're in these periods of stress, the body's immune system overreacts to the gluten in the food, and the reaction damages the villi that line the small intestines, which absorb vitamins, minerals, and nutrients from the food that you eat. So if the villi are damaged, you can't get enough nutrients, no matter how much you eat. So you don't, sometimes celiac is triggered, so it's not necessarily something that you've experienced all of your life. It can be triggered by something. Celiac can affect anyone, tends to be more common in people who have it in the family, who have diabetes, Down syndrome is associated, who have an autoimmune or thyroid disease, who have Addison's disease. One of the things I will say that it's important to, if you don't have celiacs, there's a distinction between celiacs and a wheat sensitivity. If you don't have celiacs, you shouldn't follow a strict gluten-free diet because you can develop a sensitivity to gluten. You want to, when you don't have exposure to something, you can develop a sensitivity that you might not have otherwise had. So, a lot of people, think that they have celiac disease when they actually have a wheat sensitivity or lactose intolerance or something. So it's important to, really be sure before you go completely gluten-free that it's as a result of the celiac disease. Untreated celiacs can lead to malnutrition, as you might expect, because you're not absorbing the necessary nutrients, which can also cause a loss of calcium and bone density. Neurological problems are associated with untreated celiac disease, the development of lactose intolerance as well. Inflammatory bowel diseases, Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis are the two that we tend to think of for inflammatory bowel diseases. Crohn's is an inflammatory bowel disease that causes an inflammation of the digestive tract, and it can lead to abdominal pain, diarrhea, fatigue, weight loss, malnutrition. The inflammation can involve different areas of the digestive tract in different people, so it doesn't always present exactly the same from person to person. The inflammation can spread deep into the layers of the bowel tissue, and it can be painful and debilitating, sometimes leading to life-threatening complications. Signs and symptoms range from mild to severe. They often develop gradually, but sometimes they do start suddenly. And these sound familiar with many of the other GI issues: diarrhea, fever, fatigue, pain and cramping, blood in the stool, reduced appetite, weight loss. They don't really know what causes Crohn's. It used to be that diet and stress were suspected, but doctors think that these aggravate but don't cause Crohn's. Some of the risk factors included person's age. Most people are diagnosed before they're 30. Ethnicity also plays a role. There can affect any ethnic group, but whites and people from Eastern Europe have the highest risk. Family history: if you have a close relative with Crohn's, you're more likely to get Crohn's. Cigarette smoking, use of NSAIDs. People who live in urban areas or industrialized countries are more likely to develop Crohn's. And untreated, it can lead to bowel obstruction, ulcers, fistulas, malnutrition, colon cancer, etc. So I'm going to end this one for now because we're almost out of time, and we'll pick up with ulcerative colitis on the next audio.